In today's world, we are increasingly dependent on technology. Our business and personal lives rely on it, but as you've probably noticed, it's unreliable. They promise it'll get better, but it usually gets worse. Our computers are slow, so we end up squinting at smartphones and tablets. We live in constant fear that something's going to happen to our personal data, so we're scared into paying for fake protection that proves useless when disaster strikes. Update attacks, fake Wi-Fi, cloud control, and other industry scandals are designed to keep the money flowing. The jokers we pay to fix our stuff have no clue what they're doing, so they do a virus scan and then wipe out our precious photos. Intelligent, successful people feel intimidated by the chaos and think it's somehow their fault. If they only knew what the industry was doing to them, they'd get torches and pitchforks. If only we had someone to explain it all in plain English so we can start protecting ourselves. Oh wait, we do! It's the Computer Exorcist Podcast with your host, Marc Anthony Arena.
From the Wallace Memorial microphone, this time we're not in my home office, we're actually in downtown Rochester. It's the Computer Exorcist Podcast. We're doing a joint episode today. My name is Marc Anthony Arena, I am your Computer Exorcist, and we are doing a joint episode with Tone from the RocToneDef Podcast. How you doing?
Good, thanks for having me on board, Marc Anthony.
Yeah, thanks for being here with me. It's quite a reunion. Tone was one of my high school teachers. And today we're going to be talking about AI, and it's a wild juxtaposition because he is the guy who taught me how to have heart. And as I was reading all these articles about AI, it just struck me that these computers, by definition, don't have that. And if we incorporate this AI, and we all, even before AI, right? Even before this year, kids already had no heart, and they were already being raised by the television. So imagine what a generation is going to look like being raised by AI chatbots, right?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, back before the internet and computers came along, and you're talking about television, a lot of critics were measuring the time people were watching TV and seeing that damage was being done, and they're doing the same thing now with social media. And we'll get to it maybe later, but another issue is how young teenage girls are unfortunately spending too much time on social media, 9 hours plus, and it's creating per day, and it's creating some real problems, and unfortunately, in some cases, leading to suicide. But at any rate, it's the same old story with technology.
And where are the parents? These people, I say people aren't raised anymore.
Well, there's a lot of dynamics going on right now in the home. For one thing, a lot of single parents have to raise their kids. On other issues, other parents require both parents to work in order to provide the kind of lifestyle that they both enjoy. They live in a high-end suburb, and it commands a lot of money to live there. So a lot of times both parents want that. So
what good is it?
Exactly.
What good is it if your kids turn out
Right. But once again, sacrificing for the kids for material goods, which is what America's about.
And maybe they think a lot of what we talk about is they think they're helping, right? They think they're giving their kid a good life by slathering money all over them.
Right. Money is the great Band-Aid. It fixes all.
Right. I mean, and it's great for but it's.
Well, we live in a capitalist society, so and I'm not trying to, knock down capitalism, but it does need to be corralled.
And you know what? You just brought up a huge point in my mind. I'm thinking right now, it's all about discernment, right?
Yes.
You can have money as long as you have good judgment.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And anything, and that's what I talk about with it. You can have good technology. There's plenty of tech that I enjoy, but a lot of these folks have no judgment.
No.
Okay.
No, and it's unfortunate. Actually, what I would like to do just real quickly is just start from the beginning.
And
When you talk about humans and their need for technology, you go all the way back to tool making time for humans and how tool making separated us, supposedly from the rest of nature. And so basically what happens is because of our opposable thumbs, we are able to make the tools. But what happens is that we have a problem in terms of once we create these tools, cultural issues begin to happen, and unfortunately we call that cultural lag, where culture does not catch up to the technology, and it brings on all kinds of problems in society because technology has run away. It's gone amok.
You know what? I forgot. You taught me that term a million years ago, and I forgot the term cultural lag because on this show, if you listen to my 10 years of doing radio and podcasting, I always say technology is a runaway train.
Right.
Made by people with no self-control,
right,
with no judgment, as we said, right? And this, so I went to a tech school, right, where these people are all extremely specialized people with very little, like my dad used to say, Mark, you have to be well-rounded, right? They have very little of that. I remember the quarter at RIT that this professor walks in, shoulders slumped, and he goes, all right, guys, sit down. Someone told me I had to teach you guys how to be well-rounded. And he gave us a slideshow of a bunch of naked statues and said, all right, get out of here.
Oh, my God.
So it was a very feeble attempt at making these kids well-rounded. Anyway, what I'm saying is these were hyper-specialized individuals who are extremely trained in the technology, and they're doing all this advanced stuff. No ethics, no self-control, right? So they're doing this advanced stuff, AI, space travel, nanotechnology, right? Of course, CRISPR, the DNA manipulation, okay? But then we got people who don't even know their passwords. I just, before I showed up to here, I was helping an elderly couple do their Netflix and their AOL password. And beyond that, if you go further than that, half the world is starving.
Yeah, exactly.
So cultural lag is that term that fits this.
And you know what? It's also, it helps us to deal with the problem. Technology can, survive with culture, and you just need to be aware. You need to be aware of the two, and then problem solve. And that's really where our success is as humans, is not our ability to create technology, but to problem solve. And too many times we get lost in the fact of technology and its problems.
Latest and greatest. And wanting more when you don't need more.
Right. Well, that doesn't mean you can't have more, but you need to solve the problems that you have at hand.
To catch up with it.
Exactly. Then move on.
You know what? For the past 10 years, I've been running my business, right? Doing in-home tech support for people. That's what I've done. And people say, Mark, here's how you get more clients, and here's how you get more clients. And I would go around, I need more clients. And I would talk and give more clients. And I said, wait, I don't need more clients. I need to scale the business. Right. I was just dumping more work onto myself because people told me, if you're a business, you need to promote. I already had too much, right? Oversaturated. So quick intro on what I'll explain to you what I do, and then I'll ask what your show is about, right? So my show is the Computer Exorcist Podcast, and it's about the technological, societal implications of technology, right? If this new technology comes out, and then I bark about why it's not needed, or how it's going to be abused, or why people don't need it, or a lot of what I talk about too is the absolute dearth of ethics in the tech industry. Okay, viruses have not happened since 2013. So anyone paying for protection is paying for fake recurring monthly fees. They're being milked for fake feel-good security.
I always see that pop up on the computer too.
They're begging you for money. It's all scareware. Yeah. Viruses have never happened since 2013. In their stead are 4 new threats that are out there that are either legal, unstoppable, or emotional. Wow. And you'll see this in my book. It's called How to Protect Yourself from Your Computer. And so that's what I talk about. The new threats that are out there are so far advanced, and the IT industry has no clue. They're going around putting updates in people's machines and virus scans, which hasn't been relevant for 20 years.
That's incredible. Like I said, it's a Brave New World. From that old book that we used to assign, dystopia.
Right,
You know
and
what I mean?
IT guys have had, even if you're trained tomorrow, if you go get a job tomorrow and you're trained, it's 20-year-old knowledge, right?
Wow.
It's like if your doctor was trained in bloodletting.
It's kind of interesting too. Like my podcast is called RocToneDef, and we basically talk about the art scene, the music scene in Rochester, New York. But we recently got talking, you and I, and because I'm a teacher, I got kind of concerned about what's been going on with these what's known as chatbots. And I came to you, and hopefully this show I'll have some questions for you, and other people will have the same questions, and we can get some answers moving forward. But
We'll do probably a two-parter episode here.
Okay.
We'll talk about your stuff, and then we'll do next episode. We'll talk about my articles, and it'll all turn out great.
Well, I hope so. Just to let the listeners know where I'm coming from, I've read several articles from PBS, and then also there's an article I'll bring up and a podcast from the New York Times. So that's where I'm coming from. Okay, just so people know these are the resources that I have. But first of all, AI, or artificial intelligence in the classroom, and what's known as chatbots. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, so the idea is, in the 50s, right? You remember the 50s
Sure.
TV shows where we thought it would be a robot, like a aluminum skeleton, right, that walked around. What's that, Lost in Space and all that. In reality, a lot of times robots you can make them into whatever you want. You have robots that are shaped like giant arms in an automobile factory, and that's a robot, right? You can make a robot in any shape. In this case, a chatbot is just a program that's run on a normal PC. And it's trained to take information and spit out its own information, right? And one of the most basic examples, when I was in elementary school, we would do basic programming, right? It would print out, hello, what is your name? And then it would have a prompt, so you'd type in your name. It would take that and record it, what's called a string. So it would be like name string.
Whoa.
Or you could even have like, what's your first name? And it would record it as first name string. And then what's your last name string. And then it would spit out, oh, hello, thanks for, welcome, first name string, last name string. And then it would know to spit out the names, right?
Wow.
So you'd type your name and it would say, okay, welcome, Tony Trauma, great.
And
that was the most basic example. But to the consumer, if you're looking at this, you don't know how it works, right? It's
of
magic.
Course not.
It's
yeah.
like, wow, I told it my name and it knows my name. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's a huge point. Huge thing. It's a program, right? It's a mechanism. It's a machine. It's just gears. But to the user, it appears to be a person.
Absolutely.
And that's a huge thing. Is everyone, we're going to have robots. They're going to have human rights. They're just robots. They may look and sound like they're us, but they're robots. They don't have souls and consciousness.
And, like Alexis, right? Is that correct?
Amazon Alexa, yeah.
Alexa, excuse me. That, that's your buddy giving you your needs at the present moment.
In reality, though, right, here's again an example of the dearth of ethics in the industry. In reality, it's just recording you 24 hours a day. All of you. It's a Soviet's greatest dream.
So, in other words, it's just collecting data on you, your behavior.
That's the point.
Why is behavior so important in this whole scheme of things, by the way?
Because
to know is it linked to capitalism and our buying habits?
They're worshiping what I call a false idol of data. Okay, look, if I'm an advertiser and you go to my website, sure, it's really nice to know your general demographic. You're between 50 and 60 years old, and you're black, and you use Crest toothpaste, and you live in Florida, right? General stuff. But this is getting wild. Facebook knows all of your personal messages, even your private messages. They're using them against you. It's gone a little too far, right? Google knows every website you have ever gone to, and they record it in a log inside of your Gmail address.
That's amazing.
It's called the Google History Scandal, and it's one of the things that no computer guy in the world knows about. I'm one of the few guys in the world who knows this.
That's amazing. And the other thing is, like, these chatbots, that's the technology, but then you have companies like Google now and Microsoft now competing to get their own off the ground, their own. And that's what's going on?
That's a great point. And I say this in my book, is that my industry is just a pile of inbred monopolies. So you had Microsoft, right? They were one of the first monopolies. And then all of a sudden, Apple had a monopoly originally on downloading music. And then they had a monopoly on phones. And then Google had a monopoly on search. eBay has a monopoly on buying things online, right? And it's because programmers are lazy. And I've heard plenty of times I'd come up with an idea and some programmer would say, well, you don't need that. That already exists. Right? Why do we need that? So what happens is the whole industry is a monopoly. You ever read the Dune novels?
No, I haven't. Fill me in.
So basically, in a nutshell, there's a monopoly on travel. So all the spaceships are run by one group. There's a monopoly on government. It's all run by one guy. There's a monopoly on education. There's so it's all... Right? So same thing what's happening already in this industry, right? Each company's a monopoly. So anyway, instead of companies competing and rising and falling based on that, what happens is new entrants only come when there's a new paradigm.
Whoa.
Okay, so just like in TVs.
Like with chatbots.
Right, with TVs, JVC and RCA kind of fell off the map when we had flat screens, but then Vizio and Samsung took off, right?
Yes.
So now we have a new paradigm.
Yeah.
So we have, there's search, and Google's got a great monopoly on search, but guess what? Someone else is coming out with some whole other paradigm. In this case, ChatGPT is the whole new thing, right? So they're a brand new thing, and they're going to be a monopoly. It's the same thing with Netflix, right? They came out with it. They're a monopoly, right? So ChatGPT is a brand new monopoly, but people are scrambling desperately to partner with them or maybe buy them out.
And it comes back to cultural lag again. Like an example that I always like to use in the classroom was the automobile. Think about how when the automobile first came out and all the problems that they didn't see and anticipate started coming, but it took years, and the automobile is still cursing us with problems. Now they put the computer in the automobile and it's self-drive, and that's going to be a whole new cultural lag issue for us going down the road.
Oh, and when you hear my recent episodes about that, all I talk about is paradigm shift again over from gas to EVs.
There we go.
Okay, some brands are falling out, but then Tesla's rising up and Rivian, right? So it's the same idea there. But the arrogance of the computer industry is now spilling over into cars. So your car now pops up and criticizes you and shames you for driving a certain way. And your car requires update attacks, just like with your phones where, you need an update, but then your phone is worse off and not any better. So all of this is now crushing the car industry.
That's incredible. So it comes back to this thing of controlling behavior once again.
It's, again,
by
it's
knowing
a
our
Soviet's dream.
Absolutely. That goes all the way back to the Cold War, by the way. The Soviets have been, that's been the way that they've seen to destroy the United States, and that is they're willing to be patient and study our behavior and to notice what is going wrong with us, okay?
And plant seeds.
Exactly, plant seeds. Well,
Whoa.
I'm a little off topic here, but a quote that a lot of the communist nations have had about, and even the Taliban have had about us. As a matter of fact, I heard that the same quote from the Taliban was, the Americans, they have the watches, but we have the time.
Whoa.
Meaning that you have the technology, but we're going to be patient. We're going to study your behavior. And one of the things they know about Americans is they're not patient with war. They don't like a war that drags out.
Or anything. We're not patient with anything.
Right, exactly.
And it's sad because I get it, because those folks have self-control.
Exactly.
And especially in the tech industry, there's none of that. I just wish that we as humans all had self-control and didn't just use it against each other, right?
I'd also like to wonder what's going on in China right now. And since, the Chinese allowed technology to come into their society back in the 80s, capitalism and stuff, if they're starting to have some of the same problems with their people where they've lost their self-control, they're too westernized, that'd be interesting to study. But I'm off topic.
This could be 10 episodes of and with TikTok and how they have their own internal TikTok, about that teaches kids science.
No.
So TikTok is divided. The inward-facing TikTok teaches the Chinese kids about science. The outward-facing TikTok is this mind-rotting garbage that's designed to get you addicted.
And then at the same time, then they can bring you into teaching you science?
No. The point is, you taught me about dumping. Remember dumping in the 70s where the Japanese TV industry set it up so that they had an inward-facing and an outward-facing industry.
I get it now.
So the idea with TikTok is they're going to corrupt all the foreign kids and then teach their own kids science.
And then they'll be more advanced.
Right. And that, honestly, I admire that in a way.
Sure.
But that's the concept.
It's better than bullets.
Right, right. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah. Wow.
Well, now going back to education and the chatbots and AI, if you will, in the classroom, just like I've always said, we can have both. We just have to know how to do it in terms of we can have the technology, but we need to control ourselves with it,
Instead of just replacing, all the teachers are walking off, so we'll just plop a computer in front of kids, and that's called recipe for disaster.
Mm-hmm. And I've also seen where they solve problems in the classroom in terms of, I remember using the computer to ask questions of the kids, but instead, the kids are right in the room. Mm-hmm. But instead of asking the kid the question, you allow them to answer the questions on the computer.
And that's fine. That's just a multiple choice thing. That's very simple.
But what it was explained to me in the lessons that we got as teachers about how to use the technique, it was this whole idea that there's a lot of kids in class that are afraid to raise their hand, are more willing to type it out and then...
And that's great.
That's great.
That's a great example of using technology for your benefit.
But then teachers I saw just bought into it totally. You know what I'm saying? There was no balance. There was no compromise in terms of it.
Yeah, as you're saying this, it dawned on me, wait a minute. We kind of need kids to have the social skills. If you remember when I was young...
Look what the pandemic did.
Right. Do you remember how shy I was when I was little?
Oh, my God, yes. Your listeners wouldn't believe how shy you were.
That's great. You heard it here,
and
folks.
This is normal for kids, going through school.
When I went to college, I joined a fraternity which gave me public speaking skills. And I'm eternally grateful for that.
There you go.
So I'm glad that I was forced to do that. Mm-hmm. Where if I had a computer in the classroom and I typed my answers, now we got a generation of kids who have no social skills.
No social skills, yeah. So that's what I was starting to see. I was starting to see the computer take away the potential for social skills to be developed, and it was all like all or nothing. That was my big, problem with computers. It wasn't that I didn't see their value. It was that it was all or nothing. I saw that school districts, especially mine, was putting all its money into the computers, and I thought, well, that's well and fine, but it can't be the final solution, the only solution.
But that's what happens with tech guys, is that everything is the best thing since sliced bread, and it's all going to be awesome, and it's going to make everything all better again. It's a salve, it's a panacea, right? And tech guys also love deprecating anything old. You don't want that. It's old. It's going to be deprecated.
And so, just going into the chatbots here, what it's able to do now is generate essays, term papers, haikus within seconds. Okay, and so the student, really doesn't have to do much. There's no, what's the word I want to use here? thinking. It's not critical thinking. There's no critical thinking going on here. And so that's been interesting. And although, as I said before, you get people that will defend it, and you'll get people that will not like it. But for those that do embrace it, okay, this is how they argue it, okay? First of all, they say that this is the future. Look at calculators, slide rules, spell check.
Yeah, look at them. It's made us all lazy people who can't spell anything.
I'm just giving you the arguments.
I know.
But I love it. And then they're saying that teachers kind of use it to pit the students against the computer. They see that as a value. That they challenge the students to outsmart the chatbot. Okay. That's
wait till we get to that.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing is they say, well, this is all new. The biggest concern, of course, is in high school, where the kids will take the most advantage of it. Their thinking is, though, if we get the younger kids in elementary schools involved in it, they'll see more of the value of it, and they won't be corrupted like the high school kids are. In other words, the high school kids, because they haven't been weaned on it, that's the thinking, okay? But some districts are blocking access to chatbots, but that's not going to help because, they can go home and use the chatbot at home, right?
And I remember, I was telling you earlier, in high school, I remember I was in a Spanish class, and one of my classmates used something called Babelfish. And he just typed his essay in English, and he clicked a button, and it produced a very poorly translated essay. And he showed it to the teacher, and she didn't know any better. At the time, computers were just coming out, and we just got internet, and so she didn't know. I told her, I said, hey, I looked at his essay, this guy, and it came from Babelfish. And she goes, oh, wow, thanks for telling me.
Yeah, and I was the same dumbfounded teacher back then, too, when it was all coming out. I too, was clueless, and kids were getting by me in terms of turning stuff in that, really wasn't theirs, That same thing was happening to me. It was really sad. So they say, the school district, we can just block access if we really want to help to control it and all. But then those that also think that it's a really good deal is that they say that it helps to make lesson plans, very quickly, for substitutes that may be coming in on short notice the next day. Boom, push a button, lesson plan comes out. Not only that, these lessons plans are supposedly very creative, and they're applicable to everyday life. And it makes it fun to learn things, and it helps to stimulate the students' creativity and problem solving. So those are all of the things that teachers that are embracing it right now are going for. Okay, but
if that's the case, fine. But folks, when I was in high school, at the time we had very little funding. We had the rusty old carts with the TVs that you had to slap to get to work, right? But we did better than everyone, and we had the best test scores in the state and all that. Because we had, guess what? Real teachers who stimulated our minds. We didn't have computer-generated lesson plans.
And even the teachers that rolled in that rusted bolt of TVs were criticized, for using too much TV in the classroom.
Really?
And absolutely. When I was teaching, with the TV as the main technological thing, we were, it was skeptical about how much of it you should use in the classroom. And now when I think about what's going on with this, it's like out of control, And the other final thing that chatbots will help to do is to navigate writer's block. That now we don't have to worry about kids having writer's block, because the kid will definitely put in what he wants to write about, and then the chatbot will get him started, is the argument. That this will release this writer's block that you have, and it will help to get you going in terms of that. Okay.
You know what stops writer's block? It's called turning off the distractions, turning off the phone, and sitting at Starbucks with a laptop that's not on the internet, and me being able to think about what I want to say, and not have someone influence. You know what it is? It's all about influencing us. Okay? It's all about some cloud company influencing what we learn and now what we're saying.
And it's funny too. The other thing that we didn't even throw in here is social media, and a lot of schools, not all of them, but a lot of schools still allow kids to have their cell phones in the classroom. And many times, my head was spinning around in a circle, catching kids sneaking the cell phone in terms of communicating with other people, you know what I mean, while they were supposed to pay attention to the lesson that was going on. So,
and you know what? It's a detriment to me, even if I'm just, it's a distraction.
It is.
No one's grading me. I'm an adult, but it's a distraction.
And then somebody down the road has convinced people too that they can multitask, and multitasking isn't something that's good for humans. They're not really that good at it, are they?
I'm the worst.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, what was I going to say about that? Yeah, it's just, it's very counter to, it's very much against critical thinking and learning. It goes against that.
So, just kind of moving on, the chatbots, okay, here it is in education. I couldn't help but spill over and start reading about how it also hurts democracy. Chatbots do something called flooding the zone, okay? And this is something where they create what are known as fake comments or opinions, and they're distorting things using these bots, and that's what the Russians were doing in the 2016 election. Okay, they were flooding the zone, okay, with a lot of distortions. Okay, now,
and I've heard of people's businesses where I know a lot of small business owners, and they say, Mark, we've gotten a lot of bad reviews, and we don't know where they're from. They never walked in our doors. And apparently companies, example. Their competitors are doing that, right?
Flooding the zone,
so
it's called.
Again, it's runaway technology. And I say this too, technology is amoral, right? It's all in what you do with it, right? A stick of dynamite. You can use it to do something constructive.
Exactly.
Or you can use it to blow people up.
You know what I'm saying? You can be positive with it, or you can be negative. Is how we use the tool.
And if we are raised with no judgment and no morals and no ethics and no common sense, what do you think's going to happen?
Absolutely.
We're going to be those monkeys, right?
Right.
And all the different things you taught me, the Homo sapiens and the Neanderthals.
Right.
Except now we're going to have greater weapons.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
And just going back to democracy, especially in democracy, politicians rely on what people want in their districts, okay, in their communities.
So they not necessarily what's right, but they're just going after what the vote is going to get them.
Absolutely. And so what you're seeing is less and less politicians doing the knocking on the door, and they're relying on the computer and the comments that are coming in, okay?
And the robocall.
And so what AI does is it mimics people. And it's especially helping lobbyists. Lobbyists will use these bots to generate fake tweets that the politicians are seeing. And so I guess, just kind of summing up here, getting into another issue here is, do we need guardrails or protection by government? Okay, and this brings me to a recent thing that just happened yesterday. There's a case in the Supreme Court known as Gonzalez versus Google, and it is dealing with the issue of Section 230. It is part of the Communication Decency Act of 1996. Now, this is during the Bill Clinton era when we had, as you can recall, the greatest economic growth we've had in this country in a long, long time. And that was due to .com.
.com bubble.
Yep. And basically what happens is this Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act protects websites from lawsuits over material posted by its users. And the case is based on a 2015 ISIS attack in Paris where a young girl was killed, a young innocent girl was killed. And the parents are contending that these ISIS killers were recruited by YouTube. I always mess up algorithms. Okay.
Yeah, the algorithms. Okay, so and this this blows my mind when you said this.
So it's based on the user's viewing history, and it helps to recruit for ISIS. So how many times have you sat there and you're watching a YouTube video, and suddenly it takes you down the rabbit hole?
Right, and it shows you related things, suggested things based on your preferences, right? So what you're saying is someone watched one video regarding ISIS, let's say, and then all of a sudden YouTube's algorithm started suggesting more ISIS content and more and more.
Yeah,
and more.
For instance, I'll be watching a video on Bob Dylan, harmless enough, okay? Next thing I know, it's Bob Dylan here, Bob Dylan there. Then all of a sudden, it's, another artist. And then, if you keep going, somehow it leads you to something you had no intention of watching,
right.
but
Let's
suddenly
say you
you're
click
watching
a suggestion and you realize you don't want it, right? You're watching it, you don't like it, but then from then on it starts suggesting, yeah. And guess what? Because the algorithms have no ethics, morals, logic, and common sense, right? I always say that human beings have those things, and then on the other hand is the computer industry with none of that.
Exactly. And you know what I've tried to do, and it's hard to do, that comes up, the YouTube. I try to stop it as fast as I can. So at first, it was taking 2 or 3 videos for me to control myself and say, okay, that's enough. Okay. And my goal became just that video that I came on to watch. I'm going to watch it. And then when this next thing pops up, I'm going to resist the temptation to watch this next video. It was hard to do, but I'm finally there. I'm finally where I can just watch the one YouTube video that I bring up and then leave.
And I try to do that as well. And they have something called a YouTube client where a third party creates a distraction-free environment for you to watch YouTube videos.
Did not know that.
But it's crazy because, hey, y'all thought cigarettes were addictive.
Oh my God, yes. So,
yeah.
Right, exactly. Well, just continuing on the court case. Section 230, by the way, came before Google and Twitter were even in play. Okay, which makes it interesting. And the argument was, though, that the internet would have gone under if this Section 230 had not been put in play. The internet would have never have grown and thrived because it would have been crushed by lawsuits in the courts if that indeed had happened. Now, I have a question for you.
Because any law that comes up, guess what? It becomes, and I say this all the time, and go ahead.
I have a question. The article mentioned this thing of thumbnails and how thumbnails were used by YouTube to encourage access to info or videos not requested. Have you heard that term before, thumbnails?
So, yeah, it just means when you're on a YouTube page, let's say you search for something, right? And the results show up, but they can't show, all the videos can't play all at the same time, right? So they show a thumbnail. And the author of that video can put whatever thumbnail they want. And I see this all the time where I'm looking for something, but that thumbnail is a pretty girl. So of course I'm going to click on it. And then I watch this 20-minute video and there's no girl.
What?
Right? So it's like, I wasted all my time. So thumbnails, they lure you in thinking you're going to watch something that you want, and then, and it's a way for them to get clicks. It's all about the clicks. They don't care about whether they're bringing value to someone.
So Google, which owns YouTube, their lawyers before the Supreme Court are arguing for, of course, the greatest amount of immunity, okay? In other words, that, we get to be protected, okay? Because it could destroy the internet. That's what they're arguing in front of the judge. Now, the courts want to put this issue to Congress. They don't want to deal with it, okay? That's what a lot of people that saw the arguments yesterday are contending, that probably the courts are going to say this should be, and now the courts have been known to, this particular court has been known to punt a lot of its, decision making back to Congress and say it's up to Congress to do. Look at the latest abortion case, okay, where abortion was basically overturned. They said, well, that should be the states that work with it.
They're just punting everything.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to say whether it's bad or good. They're just going to say that's the state's decision. Well, in this case, it's Congress's decision, okay, in order to regulate. Now, basically, though, and they have to know this, Congress is divided in terms of regulation, the type of regulation that should go into play here. If you look at the Republicans, they want to regulate the bias that's going on against conservatives. They feel that conservative platform or conservative ideas are censored, okay, by most of these social platforms. Okay, so that's where they want to go in terms of regulating. The Democrats, on the other hand, they want to regulate hate speech, conspiracy theories, and misinformation. Okay, so you see, both want to regulate.
And both have merit.
Yes, but they're going off in different directions, and because they don't compromise anymore, they're just going to be, doing nothing, and it's going to only frustrate what's going on.
And the end result, as I say on my show all the time, is more complexity and more burden on you.
Yes, this is exactly it. And get this. So the NewsHour and NPR and the Marist poll came out, and they said that 29% of adults want to see the government set the rules for the internet, whereas 67% of adults, and that's significant, say that social media should set its own rules. So in other words, Facebook and all that, they should set their own regulatory rules.
It depends on what you mean by social media. It could mean the populace, or it could mean the warlords and the in-bred monopolies of Google and Apple, right?
Exactly.
And they're brutal toward everyone. They shut you down mercilessly, and you have no recourse.
Yep. So Google is, taking this to heart, okay, social media, and they all are, we're going to do something about this. So Google is experimenting in Europe right now, and they're using something called pre-bunking. Have you ever heard of that before?
No.
Okay, so you know what it means to debunk. Okay, in other words, put to rest any falsehood, right? Basically.
I have seen this. So if you go on any YouTube video remotely related to COVID, they're going to put a banner that says, "This video talks about COVID, and that's a sensitive subject, and we think you should look at this website to know what we think you should believe."
And
is that what's pre-bunking?
Yes. What it does is they're videos that aims to make people more resilient to corrosive effects of online misinformation or disinformation. They're short videos that highlight the techniques common to disinformation. Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok are using it. They're using ads, like you said, to counter misleading claims. The internet has heightened the speed of disinformation. That's why they're rushing this out to stop what's going on, especially since the 2016 election. And we'll see that a lot of people are frustrated by journalists fact-checking, that it's too slow and less trusted. So these pre-bunking videos are cheap and easy to produce, and they are seen by millions of people on popular platforms. And they're going to focus on these techniques used to make viral disinformation, and not the topics. Techniques like fear-mongering, scapegoating, false comparisons, missing context, and exaggerations. So what they basically do is they tell you what are the characteristics of a video that is filled with misinformation.
Right, a conspiracy video. And believe me, there's plenty of people who send me conspiracy videos all the time, and I can smell them a mile away.
Right.
And when you're ready to finish the episode, I'll give you I know exactly what to say about this.
Well, I mean, and as the PBS article goes on to say, that they tried it in Poland, the Czech Republic, and Slovakia. And what was interesting, it worked more in Poland than it did in in the Czech Republic and Slovakia.
Why?
They really didn't know why, although it got out to 38 million people. But they felt that the reason for it was because a cultural thing, that in the Czech Republic, Slovakia, it was basically dubbed. It wasn't in their language. Okay, whereas it was in Polish, it was so it became,
that makes a difference.
Yeah, and so it made it more effective that way. And just to sum up, in terms of that, just for your readers, there was a experiment that went down called the chat box experiment.
Oh, and can we?
Oh, sure.
I'll just sum up on the.
Sure, please do.
The idea with the pre-bunking, and then we'll do chatbots in the next episode.
Right.
But the pre-bunking thing, it's a great place to stop here. Here's my opinion on that. It's the least efficient thing possible, if you think about it societally. Okay, and it's hard to explain. Think about this, right? Like I told you, our driver's ed teacher in high school was so awesome that I, knock on wood, I've never been in an accident ever, because he instilled in me in those 6 weeks, whatever it was, he instilled in me everything I needed to know to make my judgments at every intersection and every highway. Okay?
Awesome.
And just like you instilled in me that sense of smell, so that no matter what is put in front of me, I can smell with my own critical thinking and my own human rationality what's a scam, what's misinformation, what's misleading, what's trying to... But for someone to slap a Post-it note on every gosh darn thing you watch on the internet, hey, warning, you probably should, hey, warning.
You're going to react negatively to that.
It's the point is, you can raise people right and not worry about what next week's video is going to be, because you know you've already raised them right, as you have to all your students.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that.
Right. Or you can slap a Post-it note. What do they call it? Jetpack parents, right? Or helicopter parents.
Yeah.
Right. Oh,
yeah.
Don't eat that. Don't touch that. Don't eat that. Don't touch that.
Right.
So that's your choice. And there's a guy. I think his name is Father Mike Schmitz. I want to say he's a podcaster. He's a priest, and he said if we have less and less morality in the world, you're going to see a lot more violence, and you're going to see a lot more rules and regulations as reactions to this, right? So it depends. Do you raise someone right? Or do you slap Post-it notes on everything they do?
Exactly. And this kind of leads back to what you were saying too earlier, the whole idea that, technology cannot be this cold-hearted thing. It has to have some morals to it. It has to have, it has to have an acceptance of what culture is about too, as well. And what culture needs, not what technology needs.
And unfortunately, people worship technology as a god because they don't know any better, and they think, well, this is powerful, therefore we should worship it. And on that note, that was part one of our episode. Marc Anthony Arena, the Computer Exorcist, here with Tone from the RocToneDef Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much.
On the show.
Brilliant. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
But it's definitely an interest.
Oh, brilliant. We'll talk to you guys later.
Okay.